Hello, everyone. I'm David Vaucher. Welcome to the Business of Motorsport powered by Vaucher Analytics. Now, some recent hard-hitting news in the motorsport world concerns Alpine's WEC exit after the 2026 season. Now, full disclosure, I'm half French, and this hit me particularly hard. And as long as we're being subjective, I will just say that I think that the Alpine entry might just be the best looking car on the grid. Now, all hypercars are beautiful. We want as many of them running races, but there is just something about that blue, white, and red livery running around circuits around the world that really just does it for me. But this is the business of motorsport. I'm not here to share my subjective opinions. I want to stay objective and I want to discuss what this actually means for Alpine's strategy, not just in the WEC, but really its overall motorsport strategy concerning its other much larger investment in Formula One. So let's talk about how Alpine's WEC exit raises a bigger question about the value of its Formula One investment. And before I get deeper into this, I just want to mention that this episode is adapted from a white paper I just published called The Quartz Protocol. So if you're interested in finding out more, I will leave a link in the show notes to the Vaucher Analytics website where you can download that white paper. So Alpine was built on motorsport. Since its founding in 1953 by Jean Redelet as basically a Renault tuner, that relationship maintains to this day because Alpine is a sub-brand of Renault. And since that time, over 70 years ago, the brand has been defined by its principles of lightness, agility, and the spirit of competition. Principles reflected in some of the sport's most demanding successes, from winning the inaugural World Rally Championship Constructors title in 1973 to victory at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. That heritage was central to Alpine's relaunch by Renault in 2018 via the critically acclaimed A110, and has since been reinforced again through participation at the highest levels of global racing, including Formula One and the World Endurance Championship. And I should mention here, again, repeating this relationship between Renault and Alpine, but the Alpine Formula One team used to be the Renault Sport team and presumably was renamed to Alpine to coincide with this relaunch of the Alpine sub-brand. Recent developments, though, suggest a strategic shift in this motorsport involvement. Alpine has announced its withdrawal from the WEC after the 2026 season, while its Formula One program has been subject to persistent uncertainty, including speculation around a potential sale. Now, rumors have named Chinese EV giant BYD, but both the sale itself and the buying party are just that, rumors. I want to emphasize that, and it's really here nor there for the purposes of this episode. But this raises a fundamental question. Can Alpine credibly position itself as a performance brand without continuing to build that performance on track? The implicit bet is a risky one, that past success has created enough brand equity to sustain future demand. Vaucher Analytics data collected for the Quartz Protocol suggests that this is really the case. And for a brand like Alpine, which apparently wants to become what I've heard referred to as the French Porsche, is this viable, considering the Stuttgart brand is so desired today, precisely because of its own on-track exploits built over decades? Alpine's exit from the WEC and its Formula One involvement highlight a failure mode that is easy to miss inside a racing organization. It is possible to outspend your ability to convert attention into brand value. Alpine may already be in that position, and somewhat ironically, it is in fact following Porsche, which announced its own WEC departure in 2025. Alpine is therefore an example of a brand that built a top-tier motorsport program that does objectively generate a large standalone audience, without doing the only thing a corporate motorsport program ultimately needs to do: establish a system whereby the motorsport program enables the brand to sell more cars. And to be clear, again, this is not just Alpine, but the larger Renault brand above it. The data set collected for the Quartz Protocol highlights the gap in Alpine's motorsport efforts. They are active on a global stage, but have not converted this to mass market awareness. And the result is that after a few years, to a board or a C-suite, the racing programs look like nothing more than frivolous spend, rather than the marketing cheat codes they should actually be. Now, I know that while social media followers are not a perfect metric, they are useful. This was the data I used for the Quartz Protocol. And in those findings, it is interesting to note that as of January 2026, the Alpine F1 team had roughly 4.7 million followers on Instagram. And I'll note that the WEC Endurance program added about 173,000 racing-focused followers. The main Alpine brand account sat at around 451,000. That is not a healthy proportion. F1 involvement costs upwards of $200 million a year, excluding what's not covered under the cost cap. For that investment, Alpine's main brand can only convert one follower for every 10 that show interest in its F1 efforts. This suggests that the racing audience is not being systematically converted into broader brand equity, brand following, and ultimately product demand. It is even possible to hypothesize that the main brand's social media following would be about the same even without the Formula One involvement. And as a benchmark, let's look at Lotus, which is a similar type of motorsport-focused brand. It has over 900,000 followers, nearly double that of Alpine's account. Now, if Alpine's core brand audience would look largely the same without its Formula One involvement, then the program is failing its primary commercial objective. It is not creating growth, only cost. What makes this strategically uncomfortable is that, again, Formula One is not a marginal investment. It is a high recurring cost platform that only makes sense if it accelerates a brand's commercial ambitions, including awareness, desirability, premiumization, and conversion. At Formula One cost levels, even small inefficiencies in value capture translate into tens of millions in unrealized brand return, or at least the potential is certainly there. And with Alpine, it looks as if there are large oversights in how to take customers who may not even know that Alpine makes road cars on their journey to a dealership. If Alpine only had an endurance program, the relationship between racing audience and brand audience would look broadly coherent. Proof, that is to say, on-track racing exploits, and halo, that is to say, perception in the public mind, would be proportionate. And that campaign would have been a good program to pilot before embarking on a larger F1 effort. But Alpine has decided to leave the WEC. And when the F1 team's following is an order of magnitude larger than the brand's, the diagnosis is hard to avoid. The motorsport audience is being captured by the team as a standalone entertainment product, but not by Alpine as a consumer brand. So Alpine is effectively subsidizing a global entertainment asset, Formula One, it does not own commercially. It would be doing that anyway, just by being on track, but it is not going the step further to leverage that exclusive platform to further its own marketing goals. In contrast, Vaucher Analytics data for the Quartz protocol indicates that Mercedes demonstrates what Alpine lacks, a system where motorsport visibility compounds brand equity instead of sitting adjacent to it. The F1 team's audience is large, but it sits at a more defensible relationship to the main brand's scale, partly due to Mercedes' broader equity, and also because the organization has decades of experience turning performance identity into a scalable brand asset. The implication, though, is not that Alpine should not be in Formula One. That is not what is being said here. The implication is that F1 without a strong translation architecture becomes an expensive way to build someone else's audience. And that applies to every team on the grid that also sells road cars. Now, there is work to do because this is now the situation in which Alpine finds itself. The brand wants to go fully electric with premium priced electric vehicles at a time when highly spec'd, very competitively priced Chinese EVs are poised to enter global markets in full force. The way to address this should be textbook application of the luxury industry's playbook, creating desire. In the automobile industry, this is done on the racetrack, and Alpine is either pulling away from or not fully leveraging its on-track activities. Alpine also apparently wants to enter the US market. This is the exact market F1 cracked to achieve its current trajectory, and it therefore should be the perfect platform for Alpine's efforts. And yet, the brand's F1 team finds itself again entertaining rumors of a sale to, ironically enough, a Chinese EV giant. Crucially, even while Alpine are currently under converting their racing into master brand growth, the association is anecdotally translating into product level traction. The data collected for the analysis in the Quartz protocol suggests that Esprit Alpine, or Esprit Alpine, which translates to Alpine Spirit, special edition trim packages are taken up materially across new Renault models. More importantly, the naming is the motorsport-led strategy in miniature of something I have advocated since starting Vaucher Analytics. Alpine's motorsport halo is being used to lend performance meeting and desirability to the wider range. If the strategic intent is to grow awareness and desirability, then the spend needs to be matched by a conversion system, a clear performance ladder, product and option strategy that customers can buy into, and a content and retail pipeline that converts racing attention into purchase intent. Without that, Alpine risks paying for global reach while capturing only a fraction of its potential return, especially when on-track results do not provide a compensating performance narrative, although I'm happy to say it does look like things are a little better in this new rule era of 2026. So Alpine has already seeded what could have been a valuable equity builder in its WEC campaign, and its F1 program risks following the same path. And that is it for today's episode of the Business of Motorsport. I really do hope you enjoyed listening to it. And as always, I want to thank you so much for choosing to spend your time here with me. If you want to find out more about this episode, please do check out the associated show notes, and please do go download the court's protocol if you're interested in finding out more. In the meantime, though, I want to thank you again for choosing to spend your time here with me on the Business of Motorsport, and I really look forward to speaking with you again on the next episode.